Tonight's episode of the 31st Lap Podcast is brought to you by DirtTrackDigest.com. If it's on dirt, it's on Dirt Track Digest.
This is the 31st Lap Podcast, recorded live in the studios of FingerLakes1.com in downtown Seneca Falls, New York. And now, your hosts, Chris Marquardt.
Good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to the 31st Lap, episode number 175. On deck here, ready to roll off. Mike Mallett is joining me here on the hotline here, talking a little bit about recapping Super Dirt Week, the finale at the Fairgrounds. Once again, this is the 31st Lap, episode number 175, and today is a special day not only because it is Back to the Future Thursday, where this is the time that in Back to the Future 2, the DeLorean went back to 2015, and so many of those prophecies turned out to come true. It is also the 4th anniversary episode of the 31st Lap. Joining me once again, Mike Mallett here. Can you believe, in fact, Mike, that we've been doing this for 4 years already?
I'm shocked that it's our 4th anniversary. I didn't think about that when you said we were doing the show.
Right? It didn't click?
It didn't even cross my mind. I remember doing it, because I remember it was the infamous freezing disqualification, if I recall, was our first one.
That's right. Super Dirt Sheet, and the title could potentially hold true again this time. We'll get into James Michael Friesen's situation with that motor, but I mean, over 4 years we've gone. We traveled to a bunch of different racetracks. We haven't quite cracked the nut of live streaming an event yet, but that's something that we've been knocking on the door with a couple of these different local tracks here in the area. But from the humble beginnings of that card table where it was audio only. and we're still doing the phone interviews the same way, but I mean, other than that,
I think that was the one thing I asked for 25 years ago was the phone thing into the mixer board. But hey, whatever.
But it's working. I mean, what we've got is working, and it's been a ton of fun. And as long as we keep doing the show, does that mean that we keep talking about Stuart Friesen winning Super Dirt Week?
I mean, it must be required, right? At this point. Talk about Stu and all that he was able to accomplish this week. As per usual, he had the dominant car, and he proved it, and he showed it, and he ended up driving it to victory lane. And it's only fitting that the 44 car wins the 44th anniversary show and the final show. And
what was the mood like at Super Dirt Week from your perspective? I mean, there's a lot of pageantry, there's a lot of past winners, there was all the different cars that were on the midway. You had a chance to see up close and personal the Batmobile. We saw Buzzy Rudiman's car. Brett Hearn, obviously, he was there, multi-time winner. I think he's won the race 5 or 6 times. What was the mood like from your perspective, working all weekend with Dirt Track Digest?
Well, for me, it was just work, and then work some more, and then have 5 minutes of fun, and then go to bed. But it was different. It was exciting, but it was somber at the same time.
Sure.
People understood that this is it. That's a tough thing. I mean, like, after the race was over on Sunday night, you could tell everybody was just, cherishing the place one more time. I know myself, along with Adam Ross, we have a tradition where we normally drive a lap around the mile. Well, this year we decided to walk a lap.
Right.
We just, we dug some dirt out of victory lane, or, right there at the start-finish line, and put it in some jars, et cetera, saved it as a memento, as a keepsake, and I think a lot of people did that. We weren't the only ones.
Sure.
Just getting their piece of the Moody Mile before it's gone. Because you don't know. I mean, at this point, the state, said that it's coming down, so it's only a matter of time before it's gone. So, that was kind of the attitude. I mean, it was a perfect Super Dirt Week in the sense that you experienced everything you usually do. Friday, Mother Nature made her face known, as always, and it rained all day.
Right.
And all night, and we got no racing there, unfortunately, but that seems to be the way things go at Syracuse. We've been there, when there's so much rain that the tunnel in the backstretch is flooded.
Mm-hmm.
So it was only fitting that we had a rain out, but then, by Sunday, the weather was, the best I can remember ever being a Super Dirt Week, other than, the race where we came back in November, and that was 2005. So
best weather in 10 years.
Maybe later than that, but, it was a fitting end to it if you're going to go out. I mean, you might as well go out with a 75-degree day of packed grandstands and a pretty good race.
I was surprised that no piece of the grandstand were walking out of there.
Yeah, they took everything else, though. They took the body panels off the Super Dirt Week Modified. They took every banner you could possibly get. I mean, heck, even Brian Carter got his own piece of banner, off the front stretch.
Really?
Because I got my piece of banner, but it was close to not getting it. So you had to be quick on the draw with your X-Acto knife to make sure you got your piece of history there. I mean, before Victory Lane was even over, I mean, they were ripping the banners down the front stretch. The finale at the Fairground banners off the concrete. I mean, Dirt Car pretty much didn't have much to do, in terms of cleaning up banners afterwards because they were all gone.
Right. In terms of the race itself, Stu Friesen, he looked like he was in pretty much cruise control once he got to the point and was able to drive away to his fourth win.
Matt Shepard and Jimmy Phelps pretty much on the same lap. And then Kenny Tremont gave him a run. Kenny got to him a couple of times, but there was just about 4 laps to go. Kenny hit. There was a hole in the bottom of one. It was fast. If you had to drive through it, but if you hit it wrong, it shot the car. And he hit it just wrong one time, and it shot the car, and he lost about 4 car lengths, and that was pretty much all she wrote there. It was a lot more cautions than you probably wanted to see, but ultimately no one will remember the race itself when it goes down in history. Just remember the winner and the event. And I can tell you, I mean, it was the most people I've seen at Super Dirt Week since I've been going, since I think it was 2004 was my first year.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that would have been the year that Tim Fuller won. So it was packed. I mean, it was unbelievably packed. The camping area was packed. You couldn't get another. I don't think, talking to Jeff Hockman and Chris Dolak, they were talking how pretty much the campers were sold out. There was no more places to put a camper on the playground. So that's pretty impressive.
Not bad. Not bad at all. I was keeping up with what was going on up there in Syracuse via the live tweets that you were sending out with Dirt Track Digest. And, man, I kind of, as nice as it was to see Stu win his fourth, and his fourth in 2010. All the same, I couldn't help but hope maybe that Kenny Tremont wouldn't be able to knock that one down for old time's sake.
Yeah, that would have been cool. I mean, any of the top 3, if they had won, I would have had no problem with. Jimmy Phelps won his first Syracuse race on Saturday as part of the 358 event.
Finally.
And, I would have been happy with that. I talked to Jimmy a lot. He's a friend of mine, and I would have been fine with that. I'm fine with Stu winning. I'm fine with Kenny winning. Would have been awesome too. And all of it. At that point, it was just, you wanted to see a race, and you wanted to see a good race, and you wanted to end on a high note,
Right.
So you had to pass for the lead in less than 30 laps to go. I mean, there's not much more you can ask for at that point.
Sure.
In terms of Syracuse, we've seen some duds, we've seen some good ones, and this one wasn't a terrible finish. They raced it out, and it proved to be, against Stewie on the high side of turn 3 to get the win.
Had Matt Shepard not lost a cylinder, how would the outcome have been different, do you think? I mean, was Stewie coming fast enough?
I don't know if Matt would have had anything for him there in the last couple of laps or not, or if Stewie was that good. Matt and Jimmy pitted early, around lap 173, 170, lap 73, 75.
Yeah, they were trying to go. Those guys were trying to go 125 laps.
So the fuel situation would have been different for, me and Matt, but there was a lot of cautions too, so they might have been okay.
There was a lot of cautions.
That's the great question mark, in terms of that race at the end, because you don't know, are they going to have fuel or are they not pitting that early?
Well, they were trying to go 125 laps. We've seen some miraculous runs here the last 3 or 4 years. And the 20 cautions for something like 84 laps. I mean, that was a lot of times around the track.
Yeah, and well, obviously that made a difference. That makes the difference in fuel mileage and all that.
Right. Sportsman side of things.
That's how it played out. Fuel mileage was not a factor at all.
No. Which I suppose it's almost anticlimactic for fuel mileage not to come into play. After, you and I have sat side by side and watched so many of these races come down to fuel mileage, and the guy that was 13th ends up winning the race because everybody ahead of him runs out of gas. And
oh yeah, we've seen that. We've seen that a ton. In all the years we've been going. Again, I haven't been a diehard. I'm not like a hardcore Super Dirt Week guy. Anyone that knows me knows that I don't mind the event, but it's never been my favorite race of the year. And we got a story coming up. I accidentally published it early today, but it'll be back up tomorrow, where we all kind of sum up our Super Dirt weeks. Those of us with Dirt Track Digest had the chance to cover it. And, for me, I mentioned that it's never been my favorite event because I always looked at it as we're on a national stage for one time a year, and unfortunately that's what people think when they think of Big Block Modifieds to Syracuse, which Syracuse is cool, but that's not indicative of what our cars do week in and week out.
Sure. You love Eastern States, though.
Yeah, I know. I don't get it. Don't worry. It makes no sense whatsoever. And that's coming up in 2 weeks. 2 weeks, the Eastern States, but little detour this year through Weedsport.
And, on the sportsman side, we've talked a little bit about that, alluded to it earlier. Rocky Warner going to go in the record books now as the winner of the Sportsman Championship in the final Super Dirt Week at Syracuse. We'll touch on Super Dirt Week's home here coming up in just a moment, but Rocky Warner coming away with that win a little bit removed from Victory Lane celebrations after the engine found to be no good in James Michael Friesen's car that ended up crossing the finish line first.
Yeah, that's, I feel bad for Rocky and Jake. Jake has never won a race. That was his first win at Syracuse. I had a chance to talk to Jake. I talked to Jake and Rocky yesterday about winning. For Rocky, he's won 3 times prior to that, so it wasn't as big of a deal not to have the front stretch celebration. For him it was about, hey, you know what, I'm the winner of the last Syracuse. But for Jake, he's put a lot of time, a lot of cars, a lot of different guys have driven for him, at the mile. And that was the first time he would have had the chance to celebrate with a big check in front of the big crowd. So
Sure.
Kind of felt bad for him, but ultimately, what's fair is fair, and finally they did the right thing. The last few times we've seen disqualifications, we've seen the guy get, half points, half money, or no money, no points, but keep the trophy. And, that's not right, I don't think. I agree. Rocky, when I talked to him, thanked Dirt Car for doing the right thing, for saying, hey, this is it. They're disqualified, they go to the rear, and we move everybody up.
Right.
And that's the way it should be. If you're caught cheating at the biggest race of the year, you shouldn't get credit for the victory. There should be consequences for it. And that's ultimately what happened this time.
And Rob Yetman coming away with the win in the Pro Stock event. He's always a strong runner over there in Syracuse in the Pro Stocks.
That was just like it is every year, that was a hell of a race.
Right.
Between him and Francois Adam and Nick Stone. In the last 5 laps, you weren't sure who was going to win. Yetman lost the lead with 1 to go and actually passed him on the backstretch to get the lead back to go on to win it. So that was it was impressive, to say the least, the Pro Stock race.
Danny Johnson having some success early in Super Dirt Week. Coming away, he won the 358 Modified Championship, the Hurricane 100 at Brewerton, and the night before that on Wednesday, he won at Weedsport Speedway with the 358s.
Yeah, he had a couple good nights, but things did not go his way on the mile.
No.
They were not. It was not a good weekend for the doctor in terms of action at the Moody Mile. But definitely, he looked strong at Weedsport. He passed Brett Hearn there to get the win, and then at Brewerton, he did all he could, to hold off. Billy Decker was there, Mike Mahaney was there. Matt Shepard. So, he had to earn it. There was no gimmies for Danny Johnson in those 2 wins.
Mike Mahaney rebounding to win Sunday night in the 358s over at the Rolling Wheels Raceway Park in conjunction with the makeup 360 Challenge race, which included a number of the ESS drivers. Mark Smith, I believe, was the guy that ended up coming away with the win in that event, holding off Chuck Hebing, who's had a great year in the 360s yet again, flexing some muscle over there at Rolling Wheels Raceway Park. Rolling Wheels was busy on Saturday as well. After the rains did chase out of town, the World of Outlaw sprint cars put the 5/8 mile in Elbridge to good use as setting a new track record and a new record for sprint cars at any given track, speed record of a lap in Rolling Wheels at 145 plus miles per hour. Paul McMahon touring the track at that speed, and Donnie Schatz winning his 31st feature of the year, which now sets him among the top 3 most winningest seasons, with a couple races still to go.
Yeah, he had that track was fast on Saturday. It was ungodly fast. It was one of the fastest times I've seen Rolling Wheels. Smooth and fast. Mother Nature played into that with all the rain we got on Friday, and set up one quick racetrack.
Steve.
And, Shots, as always, the golden horseshoe, stuck somewhere, so to speak. The dash inversion was 6, and that put him on the front row for the dash. He ended up finishing second. Started on the front row, chased down David Gravel, and that was pretty much all she wrote.
David Gravel passed guest here on the 31st lap as well. Steve Payne winning the modified portion of the racing card over there. He had some company at the front of the pack, but that was the win and you're in, basically the consolation race. So that gave him a starting spot at the mile for the 200 on Saturday. Previous to all the action over there at Rolling Wheels Raceway Park, Saturday, Jimmy Phelps coming away, as Mike alluded to a few minutes ago, the promoter of Weedsport Speedway, cashing in his first and only career win in the premier events at Super Dirt Week, winning the Salute to the Troops 150, 358 Modified Championship. And he did it in style, too, man. That was a pretty good-looking mud bus that he had there with the number 6.
Yeah, those the throwback paint schemes are pretty awesome. You gotta say, you had Justin Ayers in the Phil Chevrolet ride. You had Jimmy and Stu and Max Shepard driving his dad's cars. Stu's lookalike car.
Mm-hmm.
So there was some neat pieces there that competed at the mile. Some cool looking race cars, and it was good to see some of those guys go back to the past and run the retro paint schemes and really embrace the fact that this was the last one. And it was definitely neat to see the Jimmy Phelps and Victor Lane with that mud bus experimental car. And
didn't do bad either with that experimental car.
No, it was good. It was pretty good. Again, it wasn't an experimental. It's their small block, but it was cool to have that paint job and all that on it, and see that. And there were some other sharp-looking race cars too.
I mean, in terms
I was a big fan of the retro theme was my thing. I was really, the one thing I was disappointed out. I was hoping that, maybe Ronnie would do a throwback Jack Johnson car, or
right,
or maybe Brat would do a throwback. Those two guys I thought would have been cool to see. One thing I will say is, you got to give props to Jimmy Horton. He picked up the ride in the Helmar supply car on basically early in the week because Alan Johnson and the crew chief had a disagreement. I think it was Gary Ballou, and as a result, Alan ended up leaving the ride. Horton got it, and the first thing they did was they changed the number to an orange 12A in respect to Jack Johnson, so I thought that was kind of cool.
Very cool. The experimental setup, is the run that Jimmy had through the course of that 150 lapper. He looked good. He kept himself out of trouble, which seems to be the theme of that 150 lapper for the small blocks. Is those cars that seem to do all right on fuel, but you got to keep yourself out of trouble in that race, and because it seems to be quite a bit ebb and flow.
And then they went to the back. Then you had to pit again after lap 50 or whatever it was. So they pitted early, fueled up, and then they came in for the stop and go, and that was the controversy. Did he stop?
Right.
Did he stop? Well, they said he stopped, so that's all that really matters. I didn't see it. I was working pit road, so I was all the way down at the other end watching the race leader pit, Billy Dunn. So I didn't get the opportunity to see what transpired, but he ended up doing that. Then everybody else had a pit, and then once they did, he was the lead car.
Just as simple as that. So Friday night, we talked about that, getting rained out, lost everything, all that ended up being shuffled to Saturday, and made for an early morning for a lot of the drivers over there. But now Super Dirt Week, the chapter's closed on the Syracuse, New York State Fairgrounds portion of it after 44 years. Now attention goes back to a bit of a different venue with Central New York Raceway Park taking center stage. Was there any conversation that you heard in the pits about that? Was there anything going on in the media center that was pertaining to the future of Super Dirt Week beyond the Syracuse Fairgrounds?
I think, the biggest conversation among everybody is, will it be done in time? That seems to be the thought process that everybody's going through currently, is because right now, there's, they're working there, but it's not the amount of work you would expect to see on something that plans to be open next year.
Right.
I know there's still some permitting things and so on and so forth that they're trying to figure out, and hopefully once that happens, then we'll fly through the process of building it. Glenn has made claims that he hopes to have it open by Memorial Day, which I think would be a challenge at this point. But if Glenn says he can do it, there's one person it's hard to doubt sometimes. It's Glenn Donnelly, because he seems to find a way to pull it all together when he needs to.
Right. That's been proven time and time again. We talked about that on one of the shows here a couple weeks back about how. He basically said, "Let me take a stab at this rolling wheels thing again." And sure enough, he immediately landed several big ticket sponsors and drew all sorts of cars like crazy. And it's one guy, as you said, if he says he's going to do it, put your feet up and we'll get the popcorn ready, because he's going to put on a show and he's going to pull it off. So you mentioned that you're going to be making your way through Weedsport here in a couple weeks. That's where the tour, I believe, is where the tour's headed. For the
tour this weekend, we've got Brewerton Makeup tomorrow night, as long as the weather holds out, from a show that we ran a few weeks ago back in early September.
Right.
Then they're at Brockville on Saturday, and then next weekend it's the small blocks on Friday night, 15,000 to win, or is it 7,500 to win? And then small blocks in Middletown are going to pay 15,000. and then we come back to Saturday night. It's $20,000 to win at Weedsport before Eastern States, which I believe is $20,000 to $35,000, whatever. I mean, the payouts are ridiculous.
A lot of money getting thrown around.
It's a good weekend to be a modified driver, but it's going to be tough. I don't know if guys are going to be able to do both. You know, that's the question. Okay, now Middletown, here it is. I got my area auto in front of me, so I can tell you. Let's see. So that's how much? Yeah, 35 to the winner of the big blocks, 15,000 to the winner of the small block races.
Not bad.
So not a bad payday, and then of course $20,000 to win at Weedsport on Saturday. So a lot of money going to be paid out that weekend.
And on top of that, Dutch Hogue National Open weekend is scheduled for that weekend as well, with the Empire 100 for the street stocks.
So a lot going on. I know the World of Outlaw Sprint Cars will be at Weedsport on Sunday. For me, I'm heading to, probably going to go Weedsport Friday, Saturday, and then down to the Orange County Fair Speedway for my favorite modified race of the year, the Eastern States 200. Again, $35,000 win. That's pretty good.
That's not too bad. So what else is on the docket for you? I mean, is that going to wrap up your racing season?
Eastern States after that, I'll head to Charlotte for the World Finals. And I'm still trying to figure out where I'm going to go in December, because that seems to be the trouble spot right now on the schedule, is finding a race in December. Because as you know, I've got a nice streak going here where I haven't missed a race in a month in almost, I think it's 2.5, 3 years, somewhere in there. So December right now I have no races that are definitive on the schedule, so I got to find something.
I'll find something for you.
I've looked at the Rumble in Fort Wayne again, of course, out in Indiana. That's something I'm thinking about possibly, but we'll see. And then hopefully hoping to go back to Yuma, Arizona if I can find a flight that's not ridiculous. At this point, they're all excessively overpriced.
Right.
So we'll see.
We going to see you out here in New Year's Eve? One of the other Finger Lakes One shows is having a New Year's Eve party at the Holiday, and you're going to be able to make it out?
That's the question. That will all depend on if I go to Yuma, Arizona or not at this point. Because Yuma is that weekend.
Is it?
And that's the Winter Heat Showdown again.
Right.
So we'll see. That, again, depends on scheduling and flights and all that.
Winter Heats, that was the one that you went to last year, right?
Yeah, then I had the chance to meet up with Kyle Larson and Casey Kane and those guys as they race sprint cars again. So that was really cool. So
not a bad
weekend. It was a neat event. I had 30 cars, 35 cars each night, and I think now that they've pulled it off for a year, I think you're going to see that increase even more.
Yeah.
So let's hope.
Very much the spectacle that it's growing to be.
Yep. $10,000 to win, $1,000 to start each night. It's a nice payday for 410 sprint cars.
Excellent. So next week we'll get into a little bit of a preview of Eastern States weekend, a little bit more of a look at the Dutch Hogue National Open weekend. You sound a little bit under the weather. You want to put a cap in this thing and reconvene next week? Yeah,
it's just I'm tired. I didn't. It was a long week and a lot of work. You get home every night at 1, 2 in the morning, get up, go to the real job, so you can go to the fake job after work. So
right.
It was, it was a tough week, but I was fortunate. I had a great group of guys working with me that really worked their tails off. I don't want to name names because there's so many guys.
If you forget somebody, you'll never live it down.
But my guys really just we blew it out of the park this week with DirtTrackDigest.com. Our best week ever. From start to finish.
Awesome.
You knew it was going to be huge, anyways, because again, it's the last one, and the folks that couldn't be there, were going to be following along, and they did. And even and then the James Michael Friesen disqualification ended up being our biggest day ever because that happened.
Really?
We ended up with huge numbers Tuesday, so I feel bad for him, but it was good for my numbers. The newspaper business, so to speak, how we always. You don't want to see bad things happen or disqualification, but when they help your overall back gate, so to, I guess that's the best way to put it. You're happy with it.
True statement. True statement. But I guess we'll probably just jump on out of here now. We've been going at it for about a half hour. Nothing major, really, other than Super Dirt Week that was taking the forefront on this side of things. It's fun to be here, getting ready to celebrate another busy year with the 31st Laps, episode number 175 in the books. Mike, 4 years, if you can believe it, 4th anniversary.
Hard to believe, man. And it is impressive that we've made it this long.
At times,
fun. We've had some ups, we have some downs, but it's been entertaining.
It's been a ton of fun. We look forward to many more. But I think we're going to jump on out of here. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks a lot for joining us here for a quick recap of Super Dirt Week. We're going to be moving into hopefully a recap a little bit of Brewerton's action from Friday night, provided the weather holds out for those guys. And then we'll take a look at Eastern States weekend and Dutch Hogue National Open weekend coming up at Orange County Fair Speedway in Middletown and Black Rock Speedway in Dundee. Mike, man, thanks a lot for hanging out with me tonight. And we're going to get out of here. Thanks a lot to everyone for tuning in, and we'll see you back here next week.